the headshot. An act that has become an absolute massive part of the first-person shooter genre. Even if you don't play a lot of first-person shooters, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And why wouldn't you? It's not only measured by the game as an achievement, but it's also a massively satisfying display of skill. Though to someone late to the gaming culture, it may seem somewhat dark. It's understood within the gaming community that a no-scope headshot can be a very impressive feat. What exactly inspired developers to start rewarding you for headshots rather than treat them like any other shot to an enemy? When exactly did it transform from simply shooting an enemy in a head to a... Is the headshot as an event simply recognition that you've become good at the skills necessary to complete the game, or is there something deeper to it? We at GameRanks would actually like to talk about this a bit, and don't expect us to sit here and say headshots are bad or violence is bad, because it's not. But we do actually want to talk seriously about the history of headshots. So let's start at the start. In 1992, Wolfenstein 3D came out. Now, there were some games prior to it that shared some of its sensibilities and mechanics, but most agree that the modern first-person shooter started with Wolfenstein 3D. It was essentially on a single plane and didn't really allow looking up or down. It just wasn't possible with the technology of the time. It obviously didn't have a headshot function, nor did Doom the following year. Doom, however, did add a degree of verticality that would create a necessity for this. The next big step happened in 1994 when Raven Software released a game called Heretic. It used a modified version of the Doom engine that allowed for vertical aiming. While vertical aiming did become standard from that point, context-sensitive body shots still hadn't been implemented. The actual first game to allow the actual impact location of a shot on an enemy character to make a difference in your gameplay in some way was a 1994 arcade game by Sega called Virtua Cop. Now, Virtua Cop isn't exactly an FPS, it's an on-rails shooter that is from the first-person perspective, but being an entirely linear arcade game makes it very different from the main types of games we're talking about. That quickly inspired headshot mechanics in rival light gun shooters like Time Crisis and House of the Dead, and in 1996 this mechanic was implemented into the original Resident Evil, a third-person survival horror shooter. Team Fortress was also created as a mod for Quake World and featured headshots, but the true first FPS to feature headshots was GoldenEye 007. GoldenEye actually cited Virtua Cop as inspiration for the feature itself. The Virtua Cop idea of targeting body parts, and most likely all the games that came after it, made them really want to innovate in the first-person shooter genre. They basically created a lot of different context-sensitive areas of the body that you could hit that would cause differing amounts of damage, including a crotch shot which would cause the enemy to keel over and kind of writhe around like they'd been shot in the crotch. Now, in GoldenEye, a headshot wasn't automatically fatal. It would often take two headshots, or a headshot and another shot, to kill an enemy. That's because GoldenEye used a point system to measure the damage done and how much could be taken, and some enemies actually had higher amounts of points than a headshot would cost. In 1999, Unreal Tournament came out. In going along with the tournament aesthetic that it had created for itself, there was an announcer who would yell when you managed to pull one off. This caused a bit of controversy. Where GoldenEye simply allowed it, Unreal Tournament was regarding it in the same way that an NBA fan would like a slam dunk. It became an event, something to get excited for. It caught on very fast. In single-player mode, headshots were a huge deal, allowing you to display your skill in the game as well as conserve ammo. But where headshots truly caught on was multiplayer. Being able to quickly end the turn of one of your friends in a competitive mode encouraged people to develop skill in aiming in the game. Now, headshots kind of kept on that path for a while, until 2005's Resident Evil 4. At this point in time, it became pretty much the norm to be targeting the head, especially in zombie-oriented games. The quicker you stop a zombie, the better, obviously. Resident Evil 4 did this clever little thing where some enemies, if you put a bullet in their head, would mutate into a stronger enemy. It was an extremely clever thing to do as it toyed with the expectations of the player and took behavior that they generally got rewarded for and penalized sensationalize them for it. It was also an incredibly notable time that a Japanese developer recognized that players really wanted to have headshots in their shooter experiences. Really, after on-rails first-person light gun games, Japanese developers kind of abandoned the concept. It was really Western developers that both created headshots as we know it today as well as sensationalized them. But Resident Evil 4's sort of fake-out was an incredibly clever usage of biases created by ingraining a specific type of shot into the culture of the shooter. In 2007, Fallout 3 took a completely different approach. Essentially, when you got into a firefight, the game would basically stop and give you parts of the body to shoot, and you were basically given numbers that indicated the likelihood that hitting them there would pay off with a sufficient amount of damage. This was essentially preloading shots and then allowing the scenario to play out. If you made the right bets and it involved a headshot, you received a slow-motion, cinematic view of the headshot. And while the targeting selection screen hasn't really been present in a lot of other games besides Fallout, the cinematic slow-motion view of the headshot has been. In fact, movies are following suit. If you remember Inception, when they were pretty deep in the guy's brain, there was a sequence that sort of evoked both GoldenEye and Call of Duty in the Siberian countryside with a base set up, and there was a whole lot of headshots. Video games clearly influenced this. Now, the headshot clearly isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's just too useful, tactically speaking, and the reward for properly pulling one off continues to evolve, as well as a sense of self-satisfaction that comes along with performing a skilled action within a game. It just feels good. Obviously, the headshot has evolved a great deal since it was first introduced, and I for one am excited about the evolution of any game mechanic. This is why video games are the powerhouse in entertainment that they are today. They don't just rest on their laurels, they continue to try to innovate. And headshots, from Virtua Cop to the latest Call of Duty, are a perfect example. What are some of your best experiences with a headshot? You can tell us in the comments, as well as please click the like button because it helps us immeasurably. Also, if you're not subscribed, you're definitely going to want to do that, because we upload videos every single day, and the absolute best way to see them first is by having a subscription. We thank you so much for taking this trip through the evolution of headshots with us. We hope you enjoyed it, and as always, we will see you next time on GameLinks.